This is called a Kanban board. And this is a really powerful way to visualize your work. This comes from lean manufacturing. If you drive a Toyota or a Lexus, the quality of that car is courtesy largely to this technique. Actually, what happens is that when they run low on parts, let's say you've got screws in a bin, they put a card inside that bin, and when the parts go down, the card reveals itself, and that's a signal to the manufacturing piece right before it, hey, we need more bolts. They take that card. You would think Toyota, in their scale, everything would be computer driven, all computer, no. They have little cards. Those cards are called signal cards, and signal card in Japanese is Kanban. So that's where this gets its name. This is a combination in knowledge work of Toyota production system manufacturing and theory of constraints. So any Goldrad fans in the audience will know what I'm talking about. But this is a way to make sure that you identify bottlenecks within your company. The way this works is we think about reading these boards right to left. Done's great. This one doesn't have been accepted. So as we think about the work we're doing, we always move right to left on these boards. And we ask ourselves, in the pin, is there anything there that I can break free and get completed? The reason we work right to left on these is the things closest to the right are closest to customer value. The whole mindset here is the thing closest to customer value is the next thing we need to put energy in to get to the point where we have achieved customer value. May not be customer, maybe proxy customer, intermediate things, but the thing closest to being done, get it done. Human nature is we love starting things. It feels good to start something. Oh yeah, I'm working on that. I get a free pass, I'm working on that. It's about finishing things, it's not about starting things. So this whole system is to help you finish, not start. The doing, the pen column I described, that's where I can't move it forward, but it's not done yet. Sometimes it's really powerful to metaphorically or physically rip those stickies in half and say, this half is really done. This other half I'm still waiting on. I'm going to put it all the way back into the to-do because maybe it's now not the most important thing to work on next. The today call or doing is what I'm working on right now. I'll explain the numbers in a minute. The doing column is this is the work that's going on. These are team boards. So immediately you can see everything that the team is working on. Today is our way of planning out. This is what we hope to work on and get accomplished over the finish line today. This week is all of the things that support our goal and all the things that are just part of keeping the lights on in our business, things we have to do. Those combine together. And then next week is a way to kind of start staging up, okay, what does next week look like? A big piece of this is visualizing work. It's so easy in knowledge work to just kind of think, oh yeah, I've got this covered, I'm working on stuff, and not really realize how many gremlins are sitting on your shoulder screaming at you, hey, you gotta get this done. And it can freeze you. If you're prone to freezing or getting overwhelmed, this is an incredibly powerful technique to not get overwhelmed with all the things in front of you. So we balance those two things. If we can't really see it here, I'll cover this in a minute. Up on that top left corner is their goal setting worksheet. Top and center on the board is, here's what we're focused on this week. So every time there's a sticky up here that you're ranking, and generally you pull from the top first, ask yourself the question, does this support moving our objective and key result forward? If it doesn't, then ask yourself, is this something I have to do? Is this urgent and important? Put that up there too.
Cool. So I'm sure a number of you, as Colin mentioned, have used something like that before, but it is an interesting exercise in moving physically your tasks across. In one of the other sessions, we talked about using Trello or Asana online tools that allow you to do the same thing, but there is something to be said for the physical Post-its on a board and just moving them across as you actually get them done. It can help take down your stress and help with managing any sort of goal that you are setting for yourself, be it in a startup or be it for yourself, just moving things across as you get them done. So last part, which is part 3 before we go to the apply your knowledge, how do we get work done faster? One of your greatest challenges is to establish and maintain a consistent flow of work, one that is set up to finish work before moving on to the next thing. This video looks at the importance of finding that flow, how to prioritize the work, and the consequences of saying yes to too many things. I know I tend to be very guilty of saying yes to too many things, so I'm very interested to learn how to not say yes to too many things. We'll jump right in.
One of the goals of these systems, the Kanban system, is to get work to go through it as fast as possible. When you're thinking about your work, I encourage you to think about it's like a banana. You don't want to pick a banana if it's just going to sit around and not actually get to the customer. These things rot. Now in your world, what's rotting is hopefully every day you're learning a bunch of things that may change the scope of the work you need to do. So if you start something, if you pick it, start working on it, learn 5 things that make that thing irrelevant, human nature is it's going to be really hard to say, I don't actually have to do this anymore, and put it away. The way we make sure that when we pick the banana, we get it to the customer before it rots, is to make sure things are moving through very smoothly. When you think about a highway, got a lot of examples here in LA, when you put more cars on the highway, what happens? Nobody moves. We're doing that to ourselves all day long. Every time you say, yeah, I'll start that, you're putting another car on your mental highway, and your mental highway gridlocks at about 2 to 3 cars. So if you're concurrently working on about 2 to 3 things, you're going to get a dramatic decrease in the effectiveness of the work you're doing. If you're putting 7 things on your plate, all you're doing is just worrying about the 7 balls you're juggling. Well, how do we improve this? I want to actually really pound this home with a demonstration. So if I could get a volunteer, and before you jump up here, it does imply I'm going to be throwing things at you. Game? All right, come on up. Okay, so I want to really help you visualize what it's like as we're doing work. If I could get you to stand on the orange little dot there. Don't worry, nothing's going to fall on you or through you. Okay. So I have a bunch of pens, and I'm going to toss a pen to you. So this is like one to-do item. Oh, maybe I need a different volunteer. That was a warm-up. Okay. All right, I'm going to toss one pen to you. Okay, it's also part of the throw because that one came in like this, not like that. It's a little easier to catch. Okay, so that's like one to-do item coming at you. All right, so I'm going to do 2. Ooh, very good. Okay. So most humans can juggle kind of 2 things at once, but how many of you typically get just 2 things at once coming at you? Typically stuff comes at you about like that.
I mean, I've got it.
All right, how many did you catch? How many did you catch?
0.
0. You can leave those there. So this is what we're doing to ourselves all day long. Thank you. Can we get a... Thanks. Oh, wait, wow. They're your pens, so you can pocket them if you want.
He's just delegating it to you.
Yes. So we're doing that to ourselves all day long. Now the trick is that you're not, like things are getting thrown at you all day long. If you try to catch them all, usually as a human, 1, no problem. Usually you can catch 2 things just fine, both physically and mentally. What happened when I threw all those pens? Like our reaction is this. The other thing about this is be very mindful of running ambulances down your highway. It's very tempting to go, stop everything, emergency, we have to work on this. Every time you run an ambulance down, just like on a regular highway, no matter how fast the highway is going, it will come to a halt. And it takes a long time for that flow to come back. So be very mindful. You can say, oh yeah, that's on fire. Can I put it as the next thing I'm going to work on once I finish everything else? Because remember, this is all about finishing, not starting. And you get to have that conversation. You get to see how much of all this stuff is queued up, waiting for you to start on.
Really cool. That's really interesting. I love the analogy of running an ambulance down your highway because I do just get that when the cars come back together, it somehow always takes a really long time for everybody to start back up. So I think this is a really cool visualization. I think it's a really cool exercise. The only thing left to do now is just go straight to the worksheet, and we're going to jump right into that. This is just going to kind of take us through what it is that we learned there. And this is something, as I said, guys, the link is in the top of the description. If you want to go to the Techstars Toolkit, go to the Check Your Progress section, and then go to the actual worksheet section. This is where you'll come to. It'll go make progress. Essentially, this is a visualization. So the idea is you want this, not this. You do not want to be scrambling all around. The goal is to get to the finish line within as straight of a line as humanly possible. As we go down, this is the objective setting that we did a bit more detail on just yesterday. So if you want to go back to yesterday's session, do that, please. You're setting the objective. What are the activities? The outputs you're looking for, the expected outcomes, which is hugely important. And this is the thing, a lot of time when we set goals, we're looking at what are the objectives, what do we want to get done, versus actually guessing at or making a hypothesis, if it's scientific, as to what is the outcome going to be. If we have to hold ourselves accountable, what do we think it's going to look like when we finished this, right? So these are outputs in the context of a startup. So reach or exceed 5,000 impressions with 10% conversion. That's something that fits to a startup, but you can do this with just about anything. So you set your expected outcomes, and then the important thing is when you come to check back in, you look at the actual outcomes and can compare. So you look at that outcome gap, and this is what, there was part of one of the other sessions where we were looking at weekly meetings versus daily meetings versus monthly meetings and how often you should have them. When you're having these meetings, what you should be looking at is that outcome gap. How big is the difference between what we think we're going to get done and what we're actually going to get done? Because if you can narrow down how that or shrink that gap, where it's, even if you're not feeling as great about it, you're very accurate, you can then make more accurate prediction as to the work you're going to get done and more effectively timeline out and see, are we going to achieve what it is that we're looking to achieve? So that's the end goal of this. And as he said, it's all about accomplishing things. So this is the exercise of putting in your objective, the activities you need to do, the outputs from those activities, and the outcomes. Check the actual outcomes and then the outcome gap. Now, before you start, this was another exercise that he had there, and this is something that you can go through. Gather your team around a whiteboard, draw the measure and shift canvas below on a whiteboard. Be careful to use dry erase marker. Make sure everyone has a pad of Post-its and make sure everyone has a Sharpie. Each team member is to complete each item on the canvas individually by writing their response to each prompt on a sticky note and placing it near the prompt itself. The group works on these prompts one at a time. Discuss team member inputs from each prompt before moving on to the next. So, for example, team members write down their answers for prompt 1, progress, then discuss the responses together before moving on to prompt 2, key moments. See the next page for an example of how to look at this, or how this looks. So here is the measure and shift canvas. And essentially what you're going to do is start with number 1, move to 2, move to 3, move to 4, move to 5, move to 6, move to 7. This is obviously just here an example of how one would look, but the way that you go through is you go through the first prompt, which is number 1, what has been our progress since our last goal? Reflect on the last week's OKRs, so objective and key results. So you start by reflecting. The assumption is that you would have done something before, you come to this, and this is what you do at, say, your weekly meeting. Everybody puts in their Post-its, and then that's a discussion topic. The next step is to look at what have been some of the key moments that have taken us towards our goal. So what has been good? Essentially, these are the successes. What are the things that have taken us towards the goal? Then you go on to step number 3. What have we learned from those moments? So what are the key learnings? And an important thing that was mentioned in one of the videos is that learnings can be like a positive one. So we thought we would only achieve 50% growth, but we achieved 70% growth. Why did that happen? Analyzing the positives is hugely important in this step. I'm just seeing column dry erase markers is a good tip. Made this mistake before. Did learn that rag soaked in petrol will take permanent marker off a whiteboard though. Good tip. Also, if you have permanent marker on a whiteboard and you write over it with a whiteboard marker, it will take off the permanent marker. So some key little tips there to take away with you. Number 4, what advice would we recommend to ourselves as focus for our next goal? So this is kind of taking the context from the first 3 steps, projecting towards the next goal. Step 5, what could be our next objectives, our next goal to focus on? Write several. You want as many objectives as you can. Then number 6, what key results will we use to measure the progress on our new objectives? These are the results that will come from those objectives. And then number 7, do we have the commitment of the team towards this goal and assigning next step? So sorry, Colm. Yeah, now you've learned. But do we have the commitment of the team towards this goal? Assign the next steps. So the idea is that then you're going to walk away from the meeting not only with your objectives, the key results you're looking for, but you're assigning them to the people who are going to actively take them on. If you go through this either on your own or as a team, you know that walking out of your meeting, everybody knows why you're doing what you're doing, what learning it's come from the previous week, because you're looking at your previous week's OKRs and seeing how that changed your mindset, and then also what your role within the team is to accomplish the objective and the key result you're trying to have. So this is just a way that you can put it in. Once you have step 7 there, you put them in as to-dos, who's responsible, and when it's due. And then from that, you have what you can move forward with. So once you have the team's commitment on new objectives and key results for next week, determine what next steps are required. Be sure to prioritize these steps and assign each one a team member responsible for its completion and deadline for completion. So that's another thing, is making sure that they are prioritized. So one individual might have 3 different tasks, and this is a bit what he was talking about with the markers and tossing the markers. If I have 3 different tasks, I need to know which one I need to do first, and then I can prioritize that. That leads to you being able to do things in a more orderly fashion and not getting halfway through the week and realizing I need to run an ambulance down the highway and this needs to get done despite all other things, and then everything slows down. So it's just about managing your workflow. I think these are some kind of effective exercises that you guys can try and take on. I'd love to hear feedback on how you guys find them. If you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to. My email address is in the description of the video, so you can reach out to me and let me know how you get on with this. I am interested. But for today, this is essentially what we have in terms of content.